are there people that you can think of who are system builders and create organizations, and those who are visionaries? Would you say Steve Jobs was a system builder or a visionary? Would you say Mr. Lee Kuan Yew was a system builder or a visionary, or both?
Well, I don't know Steve Jobs personally, and I don't understand the company well enough, so I won't be able to comment. I would say that Mr. Lee was both a visionary leader as well as an institution builder, because he set up many of the key institutions that have carried us through. But some people are very good, very, very creative, but not necessarily very good at sort of building institutions, and in fact, they're quite proud of the fact. So, you have revolutionary leaders in many countries who are always on a revolution, in a revolution, and they feel only comfortable when there's a revolution and turmoil, and they don't feel very comfortable when things have stopped, things have stopped changing. So you see some of the countries and some of the leaders are perpetually in a revolutionary mode, and they don't like it when things are settled. So without naming names, I would say that one of my predecessors speaking on this lecture series is probably one such person.
You're going to leave us guessing, are you? But if I could just develop that, I mean, the idea of different leaders being suitable to different times. At this point in Singapore's history, given the situation that's happening out there, do you think we are in need of institution builders, system builders, or more in need of visionaries and charismatic leaders?
I hesitate to answer because I'm always a little bit worried. A little bit suspicious about people who are charismatic leaders, sort of pure charisma, because I always try and look below the words that he's saying to try and understand now what is it that he's actually saying. And sometimes you can be totally mesmerized by a speaker for half an hour, or even 2 hours, and at the end of it all, when you analyze what he's actually said, you can't quite figure it out. He has strung together a very, very nice set of words. And, but when you come down to the substance of it, you really can't figure out what he's actually saying or what he's actually proposing to you. So, I think it's very important to also take a slightly deeper look at people who are charismatic or inspirational or motivational, because that's not a sufficient condition to be a good leader. You need something beneath that, below that, to have real substance.
One thing that I'd like to ask or comment on, which I'm quite passionate about, is actually value-based leadership, which you mentioned. I take a very strong view that value-based leadership starts from when you're very young, and I feel very blessed that I was part of the SJI education system from St. Michael's all the way through St. Joseph's, 4 years in SJI. And I feel that because of the inculcation of values from a very young age, it's who I am today. So I guess my question to you is that what are the challenges that students today face in terms of trying, or even schools face in terms of trying to inculcate values to the young? Because our world is changing so fast. And not long ago, I was one of the students here sitting down and listening to a lecture. And right now, how do we know what is right, what is wrong? How do we lead and inspire someone without being able to understand our own personal values and to be able to truly follow our heart before we start doing things or influencing other people? So I guess it's a kind of question for how can the schools change or adapt, and so how can students be more receptive to understand that values are actually very important? Thank you, sir.
I'm very glad that Minister Heng Swee Keat has re-emphasized values in our education system, because I think that's the most important thing. And as a parent, having kids who came through their teen years, and for many of you who are coming through your teen years now, the thing which we worry most about for our kids at that age is that they grow up right. We don't worry so much about results, exam results, but we worry that the kids will get that right set of values when they're 14, 15, 16, 17. Those are the key years. And if they grow up with the right set of values and be good citizens, it doesn't matter whether they're a plumber or a chef or a general manager. If they grow up right with the right set of values, can earn a good living for themselves, look after their families, bring up their children for the next generation, I think as parents we should be satisfied and happy with that. So for the schools, I think schools like SJI have done a particularly good job with values education because that's an integral part of their mission. And I don't think it's so complicated or so difficult to discover what are good values and what are not good values. It's not rocket science. It just requires that to be built into your daily routine, the way that you communicate your messages to your students, the way that the students themselves behave towards each other, and the kinds of expectations that you put in your students in their behavior towards each other. And I think that with school leaders, with teachers, if they do that, it's helpful. But you also need the parents to come in as well. Because the parents also must believe that they want to bring up children that way. And that there must be an alignment between this. I spoke once to a German general who had served as a teenager in the Second World War. And as a teenager, he was taken as a POW by the Russians. So he came through and had a hard life. When he finished, he went back and joined the army. He became a general. And he said to me, and this was about 15 years ago now, he said, 3 or 4 decades ago, if a young man or a young lady had, say, a relationship problem with someone from the opposite sex and wanted some advice, and he went to his parents or his elder brother or his teacher or his religious teacher and asked for advice, they would probably more or less tell him the same thing. Values were settled. But he said today, and this was sometime in the 90s, if he were to ask his parents or his brother or his friend or his teacher or his religious leader, the chances are each one of them will tell him something different. And if they gave him the same words of advice, those words would probably be, you figure it out for yourself. And so the values of the society have become uncertain. The anchors may not be there. But in my view, it's really not so difficult to identify what are the core and key values that you need to guide you through life. And I mean, the golden rule is a pretty good place to start. I mean, whether you take the positive or the negative version, do unto others what you want others to do unto you, or don't do unto others what you don't want others to do unto you. I mean, that's a pretty good place to start. And from there, I think you can build.